Let's be real, we all have been in that phase where we wanted to learn something instantly. Maybe it was learning the guitar just to play that one song everyone liked. Or maybe you just wanted to be that kid who could do something cool no one else could. But now we have grown up and the things we want to learn have changed. It's not just about showing off anymore. Now it's about leveling up. Maybe it's starting a business or simply staying one step ahead in whatever you do. But here's the catch, we still suck at learning efficiently. Not because we are lazy, but because nobody ever taught us how to actually learn. We grew up memorizing answers rather than understanding ideas. And so when we try to learn something new today, we end up binge watching tutorials, reading blogs, or bookmarking courses we never finished, only to realize days later that we have retained almost nothing. And that's where this video comes in. Because what if I told you that there's a different approach, a smarter, faster way to learn anything, not by working harder, but by thinking differently. And in this video, you'll learn 4 unique steps backed by science that can literally change how your brain processes and absorbs information. And we're not just pulling theory from thin air. We are taking cues from Isagi Yoichi from the anime Blue Lock, who goes from average to exceptional not by talent but by his ability to learn. So stick around till the end, because once you understand these 4 steps, you will never look back at learning the same way again. So let's get started. Build a second brain. See, your brain is amazing, but it wasn't designed to store and juggle thousands of pieces of information at once. Think about it. How many times have you learned something valuable like a new concept or an idea from a podcast, and by the next day it's already faded away like a dream you forgot to write down? That's not your fault, that's just how human memory works. So instead of overloading your brain like a jam-packed hard drive, what if you could build a system that remembers everything for you? And this is what a second brain is. It's not some robot or a complicated software. It can be as simple as a Notion page or even a physical notebook, as long as you're using it deliberately. Now let me explain what I mean using an example of learning a new skill, such as public speaking. Let's say you watched a TED Talk and learned a tip about how to start a speech with a question. That's great, but unless you store it somewhere, chances are you'll forget it within a week. But if you're building a second brain, here's what you do. You'd quickly write that down in your system, something like hooking the audience. Start with a powerful question. Then maybe later you add a few more things like pauses create tension and smile when delivering a punchline. Over time, you start to group these under a tag or a folder called public speaking techniques. The magic here is not just about storing things, it's about connecting ideas. When you come across something new, your second brain helps you say, wait, this reminds me of something I saved earlier. And now you're not just learning, you're also building a web of knowledge. That's the difference between consuming and compounding knowledge. This method is actually rooted in something called the Zettelkasten method, which is a note-taking system developed by German socialist Niklas Luhmann, who used it to produce over 70 books in his lifetime. At its core, it's about writing down small, individual ideas known as slips and linking them together based on concepts. You don't need to get too deep into the philosophy of it. Just know this, that the more connected your knowledge is, the faster you learn. And if you've watched Blue Lock, you know that Isagi isn't the most talented or physically gifted player, but what sets him apart is how he constantly builds a mental map, a system that helps him track how every player moves, thinks and reacts on the field. Every match, every loss, every goal, he's collecting data, storing it in his mind and linking it all together. He's not just remembering what happened, he's also understanding why it happened. That's why even when he's outplayed, he always comes back stronger, because he's playing with a second brain that's constantly learning, updating and adapting. And you can do the same in real life, whether you are preparing for an exam or trying to get better at communicating with people. Don't rely solely on a brain to keep it all together. Create a system outside of your system. Capture and review what you have learned, because the faster you can retrieve what you have learned, the faster you can learn the next thing. And that's how you 10x your learning speed, not by cramming more hours but by building on what you already know. Next up is teach before you learn. You know, one of the biggest mindset shifts I ever had when it comes to learning fast is that don't wait to teach something after you have mastered it. Teach it while you are learning it. Sounds kind of backwards, right? But that's exactly the trick. When you explain something to someone, your brain is forced to process it more deeply and figure out what actually makes sense. That's where the real learning happens. Not while you are watching a video or taking notes, but when you're preparing to explain it to someone else. There's actually a name for this, and it's called the Prodige effect. Researchers at Washington University found that when people learn with the intention to teach, they actually retain more, understand better and perform significantly higher. Why? Because your brain starts working differently. It goes from let's just understand this enough to get by to I need to own this so that I can explain it clearly to someone else. That shift creates stronger memory connections and helps you filter out unnecessary information. Let me tell you something personal. I remember when I first started learning about investing in stock market, compounding, SIPs, index funds, it all felt like a different language at first. I was watching videos, reading blogs, trying to wrap my head around how money grows over time and what it means to let your money work for you. I thought I was slowly getting the hang of it, but it still felt a little loose in my head. Then one day, a friend of mine casually asked me, "Hey, I have been wanting to start investing too. Can you explain it to me?" At first I froze. I didn't feel ready, but I gave it a shot anyway. I explained the basics of compounding with the classic 5,000 a month over 20 years example. Talked about mutual funds versus stocks and showed her how to track SIP returns on a simple app. I used simple metaphors such as treating money like a tiny employee who works for you 24/7. By the end of the conversation, something clicked, not just for her but for me too. I had never understood it so clearly until I had to break it down in my own words. That one conversation cemented what weeks of passive learning couldn't do. This is exactly how Isagi operates too. Every time he's figuring out his strategy, he's not just thinking for himself. He's constantly communicating, explaining and breaking things down mid-game to his teammates. Remember when he played with Nagi or Baro? He was always vocal, saying things like, "Move this way because this is how the play will unfold." What's happening there is that Isagi isn't just processing the game, he's reinforcing his own learning by teaching it on the spot. It sharpens his awareness and forces him to organize his thoughts, just like when you try to teach something we're still learning ourselves. If you want to explore this idea more deeply, there's a book called Make It Slick, The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown, Henry Roediger and Mark McDaniel, in which they talk about how learners who are expected to teach absorb information differently than those who simply learn to take a test. When your brain anticipates the need to explain, it pays more attention, connects dots faster, and stores information in a more meaningful way. So if you're learning something right now, here's what I would suggest. Open your notes app or grab a journal, and after every session, write down how you'd explain what you just learned to someone who knows nothing about it, like your little cousin. Simply break it down and record it if possible and watch how fast it all starts to make sense. Because the secret to learning fast isn't just what you consume, it's what you create from it. And then let's talk one of the most underrated ways to learn anything 10 times faster, and that is simulate pressure environments. Now I know this sounds intense. Like, why would anyone throw themselves into pressure when they are not even ready? But here's the truth. Your brain doesn't learn best in comfort. It learns best when it feels like something is at stake. Let me break this down into a simple, relatable way. I had recently started working in UI UX design. I did not feel ready, but I got my first genuine freelance assignment from Upwork, which was to create a Netflix-style movie website. What about the deadline? Only 1 week. I could have said no, I could have waited, done a few more dummy projects or watched some more lessons. But I did not. I jumped in, I found out while doing it. That 1 week of pressure taught me more than any YouTube playlist or bootcamp ever could. But why does this happen? Because it's all science. There is something called the Yerkes-Dodson law, which basically says that we perform better and learn faster when we are under moderate stress. Not paralyzing or panic-inducing stress, but just enough pressure to make your brain sit up straight and go, okay, this matters now. That stress triggers chemicals like cortisol and dopamine, which when balanced help with focus, alertness and most importantly, memory retention. Think about Isagi for a second. He was just another average striker when he entered Blue Lock. But the reason he evolved faster than half the players who were clearly more talented than him wasn't just because he was smart, but because he was forced to learn under pressure. He wasn't even confident in his own ability, but the moment he stepped onto the field and felt the weight of possible elimination, he started adapting quickly. His spatial awareness, decision making and hunger all evolved under pressure. He didn't wait until he was the strongest to act like a striker. He acted like one first and became one in the process. One of the best books that explains this is Peak, written by Anders Ericsson, a researcher who pioneered the idea of deliberate practice. He explains that people get better not by repeating what they already know, but by constantly pushing their limits in real, measurable ways. And the fastest learners, they simulate performance conditions early on. The core idea is this. You don't get good in peace, instead you get good in chaos. And when the stakes feel real, your brain takes it seriously. So if you want to learn 10 times faster, stop preparing endlessly and step into the fire early. Next up, after action system. Okay, suppose you're trying to learn something new and you devote an hour or maybe 2 to giving it your all. Then after that, what do most people do? They shut the laptop, put the book away and move on. That's the biggest mistake, because that moment right after you have done the work, that's where the real learning begins. One of the most overlooked ways to learn anything 10 times faster is to build what I call an after action system. It's simple, but most people skip it. Every time you finish learning something, instead of rushing into the next thing, stop and ask yourself 3 questions. What worked? What didn't? And what surprised me? That's it, just these 3 questions. Write down one honest sentence for each, not a paragraph, just one sentence for each question. You can do this in a simple Google Doc or even on a piece of paper. Keep it messy if you want, but keep it visible. Because the truth is, when you reflect right after doing something, your brain actually processes that experience more deeply. There is actual science behind this. Harvard Business School ran a study that showed that people who reflected on their performance right after completing a task improved their learning by up to 25%. It's called the retrospective learning, and it works because it breaks the autopilot cycle. You shift from just doing things to being aware of how you are doing them, and awareness, that's where exponential growth begins. And you can notice that in Isagi too, even though he's not the most naturally talented player on the field, but somehow match after match he keeps growing at a pace that makes everyone stop and stare. The reason? He never moves on without reflecting. After every game, whether he wins or loses, Isagi is in his head and keeps on replaying what just happened. That's his after action system. You'll see him do this all throughout the series, whether after losing to Rin or watching Nagi pull off something insane. He pauses, he breaks it down, he learns, and what happens after all that? He doesn't repeat the same mistake. That's how he closes the gap, and that's how he learns faster than everyone else. The truth is, you don't always need more hours of practice. You need to squeeze more from that hours you already have, and that's what an after action system helps you to do. So the next time you finish learning something, don't just shut the book or close the app. Sit with it and reflect, because that small habit of looking back is the cheat code to moving forward 10 times faster than everyone else. In conclusion, learning anything 10 times faster isn't just about being gifted or grinding harder. It's about changing how you learn. Just like Isagi and Blue Lock, the key is to reflect deeper, adapt quicker, and train your brain to think smarter. These 4 steps aren't just hacks, they are habits. And once you make them part of your daily learning process, progress stops being a struggle and starts feeling inevitable. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.